As the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, Sarah stood on the edge of the cliff, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. The wind whipped through her hair, carrying with it the salty scent of the sea below. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment to center herself before taking the final leap. This was her moment, her chance to prove everyone wrong. They had all said she would never be able to face her deepest fears, never be able to confront the past that haunted her every step. But Sarah was tired of living in the shadow of her doubts, tired of letting her fears control her every move. With a steady gaze fixed on the horizon, Sarah took a step forward and felt the emptiness of the void beckoning her. The ground beneath her feet seemed to disappear, leaving her suspended in midair for a brief, heart-stopping moment. And then she was falling, the rush of wind and adrenaline drowning out all other noise. As she plummeted towards the churning waters below, Sarah's mind raced with memories of the events that had led her to this point. The pain and loss that had shaped her into the person she was today, the battles she had fought and lost, the betrayals that had cut her to the core. But in that moment of freefall, Sarah felt a profound sense of liberation wash over her. The fear that had held her captive for so long was replaced by a fierce sense of purpose, a determination to face whatever lay ahead with courage and resilience. And as the water rushed up to meet her, Sarah closed her eyes and surrendered to the unknown, ready to embrace whatever fate had in store for her. As the rain poured down outside, Jessica sat on the edge of her bed, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe the betrayal she had just experienced. Mark, her fiancé, the man she loved with all her heart, had been having an affair with her own sister, Emily. The pain in her chest was suffocating. The hurt ran deep. Every moment spent with Mark now felt tainted. Every "I love you" sounded like a lie. How could she have been so blind? How could she not have seen the signs? A knock on the door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. It was Emily, her sister, the one person she thought she could always count on. But now, she didn't know who to trust anymore. Emily entered the room tentatively, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "Jess, please, let me explain," she pleaded, her voice quivering with emotion. Jessica's blood boiled at the nerve of her sister. "Explain? Explain what, Emily? That you've been sleeping with my fiancé behind my back? That you've been lying to my face this whole time?" Emily collapsed to her knees, tears flowing freely. "I'm so sorry, Jess. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. Please, you have to believe me. I never meant for this to happen." But Jessica couldn't hear her sister's apologies anymore. The fact that the two people she trusted most had betrayed her was too much to bear. She stood up, her eyes cold and hardened with resolve. "I want both of you out of my life, now." Her voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. Emily's sobs echoed in the room as Jessica watched them both leave, her heart shattering into a million pieces. The storm outside matched the turmoil within her soul. The betrayal cut deep, but she knew one thing for certain. She would never let anyone hurt her like this ever again. As the sun set on the horizon, casting a warm glow over the small village, Emily stood at the edge of the cliff, her heart heavy with the weight of her secret. She could hear the distant sound of waves crashing against the rocks below, a haunting reminder of the choice she was about to make. Tears welled up in her eyes as she clutched the crumpled letter in her hand. It was the letter she had written to Thomas, the man she loved, confessing the truth she had hidden for so long, the truth that would shatter their life together and leave them both broken beyond repair. Taking a deep breath, Emily slowly unfolded the letter, her hands trembling as she read over the words she had agonized over for days. Each line was a confession, a plea for forgiveness, a desperate attempt to salvage what was left of their love. With a heavy heart, Emily sealed the letter with a kiss and placed it gently on the ground, a silent sacrifice to the gods of fate. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer, her voice barely a whisper in the evening breeze. And then, with a sudden resolve, she stepped back from the edge and turned away, unable to face the consequences of her actions. She knew that once the letter reached Thomas, their lives would be changed forever, and she was not sure if she was strong enough to bear the weight of his forgiveness or his wrath. As she walked back towards the village, the shadows of doubt and fear clinging to her like a second skin, Emily felt a sense of peace settle over her. She knew that she had made the right choice, no matter how painful it might be. And in that moment, she found the strength to face whatever came next, knowing that she had been true to herself and to the man she loved. Catherine sat in the dimly lit room, her heart heavy with guilt and regret. She clutched the note in her hand, the words written by her own mother haunting her every thought. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to make sense of the chaos that had become her life. Just a few weeks ago, Catherine was a successful businesswoman with a loving husband and two beautiful children. She had it all, or so she thought. But then the accident happened, and everything changed in an instant. Her husband was gone, her children left fatherless, and she was left to pick up the shattered pieces of her life. Her mother's note had arrived just as Catherine was at her lowest point. The words written in shaky handwriting cut straight to her soul, accusing her of not being there for her family when they needed her the most. Guilt consumed Catherine as she realized the truth in her mother's words. But it was not too late. Catherine wiped her tears, determination flashing in her eyes. She knew what she had to do. She had to fight for her children, for her family, for a chance at redemption. With a newfound sense of purpose, she stood up, the note clutched tightly in her hand. She would not let her mother's words be a condemnation but a catalyst for change. Catherine vowed to make amends, to be the mother her children deserved, to be the woman her husband would be proud of. As she stepped out of the room, a sense of empowerment washed over her. The journey ahead would not be easy, but Catherine was ready to face the challenges head-on. With a renewed sense of strength and purpose, she took her first step towards a future filled with hope and the promise of a second chance. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the horizon, Emma found herself standing on the edge of a cliff overlooking the vast ocean. The sea breeze tossed her hair around her face as she listened to the crash of the waves against the rocks below. She had come here seeking solace, a moment of peace amidst the chaos that had consumed her life in recent weeks. Her heart felt heavy with the weight of everything that had happened, the betrayal, the loss, the uncertainty of what lay ahead. But as she stood there, with the wind whipping at her clothes and the salt tang of the ocean in the air, a sense of calm washed over her. It was as though the waves crashing below were carrying away all her pain and sorrow, leaving behind a feeling of renewed strength and determination. Closing her eyes, Emma took a deep breath, letting the salty air fill her lungs. In that moment, she made a silent promise to herself, to rise above the challenges that had come her way, to forge a new path forward with courage and resilience. With a newfound sense of purpose, Emma turned away from the cliff and began to make her way back to the world waiting beyond the shoreline. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that there would be obstacles and hardships to overcome. But she also knew that she had the strength within her to face whatever came her way, to write her own story and shape her own destiny. As darkness began to fall and the stars twinkled overhead, Emma walked with determination in her step, ready to face whatever lay ahead with unwavering resolve. The journey ahead would be long and difficult, but she was no longer afraid. She was a warrior, a survivor, a force to be reckoned with. And in that moment, as she looked out at the vast expanse of the ocean stretching out before her, Emma knew that she was capable of conquering anything that stood in her way. For she was a woman on a mission, fueled by the fire of her dreams and the strength of her spirit. And nothing, not betrayal, not loss, not even the darkest of nights, could extinguish the flame burning within her soul. As the storm raged outside, Lisa felt an even greater turmoil within her heart. She knew she had to make a choice that could change the course of her life forever. The weight of her decision pressed down on her, suffocating her with its gravity. She paced back and forth in the dimly lit room, the only sound being the howling wind outside. Memories flooded her mind, memories of laughter and love, memories of heartache and betrayal. She clenched her fists, feeling the tears welling up in her eyes. Taking a deep breath, she knew what she had to do. It was time to confront the truth, time to face her fears head-on. With a determined look on her face, she grabbed her coat and headed towards the door. As she stepped outside, the cold wind whipped at her face, stinging her cheeks. The rain soaked through her clothes, drenching her to the bone. But she didn't falter. She had come too far to turn back now. Making her way through the deserted streets, she finally arrived at her destination, the old abandoned house on the outskirts of town. The house held secrets, secrets that she needed to uncover. With trembling hands, she pushed open the creaking door and stepped inside. The darkness enveloped her, the only source of light coming from a single flickering candle in the corner. The air was thick with dust and decay, sending shivers down her spine. She felt a presence in the room, a presence that seemed to watch her every move. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice barely above a whisper. A figure emerged from the shadows, his face obscured by darkness. Lisa's heart pounded in her chest as the figure approached her, his footsteps echoing in the empty room. "I've been waiting for you," he said, his voice low and menacing. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. She knew she was about to uncover the truth, a truth that would shatter everything she thought she knew. With trembling hands, she reached out to the figure, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a face that she never expected to see. A face from her past, a face that held the key to unlocking the mysteries that haunted her for so long. "Hello, Lisa," he said, a cruel smile playing on his lips. As the rain poured down relentlessly, Ella found herself standing alone in the middle of the cemetery, gripping her mother's old locket tightly in her hand. The storm seemed to mirror the turmoil in her heart as she tried to make sense of the secrets and lies that had shattered her world. She closed her eyes, letting the rain wash away the tears that mingled with the drops falling from the sky. Memories of her mother flooded her mind, each one a bittersweet reminder of the love they had shared and the pain of her sudden departure. A flash of lightning illuminated the sky, followed by a deafening clap of thunder that made Ella jump. But she stood her ground, feeling a strange sense of determination building within her. She knew she couldn't undo the past, but she could uncover the truth and find closure. With resolve in her heart, Ella turned and walked towards the old abandoned house that loomed in the distance. It was the place her mother had always warned her to stay away from, a place shrouded in mystery and rumors. As she approached the imposing facade, the wind howled through the overgrown trees, sending a shiver down her spine. The front door creaked open ominously, as if inviting her inside. Taking a deep breath, Ella stepped across the threshold, her heart pounding in her chest. The air inside was musty and stale, filled with the ghosts of the past. She moved cautiously through the dimly lit corridors, her footsteps echoing in the empty house. As she reached the stairs, a sudden draft extinguished the flickering candle she carried, plunging her into darkness. Panic threatened to consume her, but Ella forced herself to stay calm. Fumbling in the darkness, she found a light switch and flicked it on, illuminating the room with a harsh glow. And there, in front of her, she saw a portrait hanging on the wall, a portrait of her mother, with a man she had never seen before. Shocked and bewildered, Ella stared at the painting, her mind racing with questions. Who was the man in the portrait, and what connection did he have to her mother? The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, forming a picture she had never imagined. But one thing was certain: the truth would finally be revealed, no matter the cost. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the rugged cliffs, Sophie stood at the edge of the cliff, gazing out at the vast expanse of the ocean. The salty breeze ruffled her hair as she tried to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions raging inside her. Her heart was torn between the love she felt for James and the pain of betrayal that still lingered in her soul. How could he have kept such a secret from her for so long? How could he have lied to her, deceiving her with his charm and warmth? But as she watched the waves crash against the rocks below, a newfound determination surged within her. She wouldn't let James's deceit shatter her spirit. She was stronger than that, stronger than the doubts and fears that threatened to consume her. Taking a deep breath, Sophie turned away from the cliff and made her way back to the small cottage she now called home. The fire crackled in the hearth, casting a warm glow over the room as she sank into the old armchair, lost in thought. The memories of her time with James flooded back: the laughter, the whispered promises, the tender moments they shared. But now they all felt tainted, stained by the truth that had been revealed. Determined to confront James and finally put an end to the lies that had haunted her, Sophie picked up her phone and dialed his number. The phone rang once, twice, before James's voice came through the line. "Hello?" he said, his voice thick with emotion. "James, we need to talk," Sophie said, her voice steady and firm. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line before James spoke again, his voice filled with regret. "I know I messed up, Sophie. I know I hurt you, but please, give me a chance to explain." Sophie's heart ached at the sound of his pleading voice, but she knew she couldn't let herself be swayed by empty promises. She needed to stand strong, to find the strength within herself to move past this betrayal and carve out a new path for herself. With a steely resolve, Sophie said, "I'll meet you tomorrow. We'll talk then." And with that, she ended the call, a sense of calm settling over her. Tomorrow would bring answers, closure, and perhaps a new beginning. And with that thought, Sophie allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for her shattered heart. As the storm raged on outside, Sarah found herself facing her biggest fear. The man who haunted her nightmares for years stood before her, a wicked grin playing on his lips. Memories of the past flooded back, the pain and helplessness she felt all those years ago resurfacing with a vengeance. "You can't escape me, Sarah," he sneered, his voice sending shivers down her spine. But Sarah refused to back down. She had come too far, fought too hard to let him win. With a steely resolve, she lifted her chin and met his gaze head-on. "I am not the same scared girl you once knew. I am stronger now, and I will not let you control me anymore." The man's expression darkened, his anger simmering beneath the surface. In a sudden motion, he lunged towards her, his hands reaching out to grab her. But Sarah was ready this time. With a swift movement, she dodged his grasp and delivered a powerful blow to his stomach. He staggered back, his arrogance replaced by shock. Sarah seized the opportunity to make her escape, her heart pounding in her chest as she ran towards the door. But just as she reached for the handle, a loud crash echoed through the room. She turned around to see the man standing amidst the wreckage, his eyes blazing with fury. "You think you can defeat me?" he roared, his voice echoing off the walls. "I will never let you go. You are mine, forever." Sarah felt fear gripping her heart, threatening to paralyze her. But then a surge of determination flooded through her veins. She refused to be a victim any longer. She would fight until her last breath if she had to. With a fierce battle cry, she launched herself at him, her fists raining blows upon his body. The man fought back, his strength matching hers with every blow. But Sarah's resolve was unbreakable. She fought with all her might, her mind focused on one thing only: freedom. As the storm outside raged on, the two figures inside the room battled with a ferocity that shook the very foundations of the building. And in that moment, Sarah knew that no matter what happened, she would never stop fighting for her chance at a new beginning. As the storm raged outside, Mark stood in the dimly lit room, watching the flickering candle in front of him. His heart beat frantically in his chest, his mind racing with thoughts of what he had done. The weight of his actions pressed down on him, threatening to consume him whole. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Mark's breath caught in his throat as he slowly made his way to answer it. The room felt suffocating, filled with the tension and fear that had been building up for so long. Opening the door, he was greeted by Sophia, her eyes red and puffy from crying. Without a word, she stepped inside, her presence filling the room with a sense of finality. The air crackled with unspoken words as they stood facing each other, the silence stretching between them like a chasm. Finally, Sophia spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know what you did, Mark. I know everything." Her words hung heavy in the air, each syllable piercing through Mark's heart like a dagger. Mark felt his world crumble around him, the weight of his guilt crushing him like a ton of bricks. He had hoped to keep his secret buried deep, to protect Sophia from the truth. But now everything had unraveled, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. Tears glistened in Sophia's eyes as she continued, her voice trembling with a mixture of hurt and anger. "I can't believe you would do this to me, to us. How could you betray my trust like this?" Mark's throat constricted, his words caught in a tangle of remorse and regret. He reached out to touch Sophia, to apologize, but she flinched away, her expression hardening with resolve. "I can't do this anymore, Mark. It's over." Sophia's words cut through him like a knife, leaving a deep, gaping wound that bled with loss and despair. And as she turned to leave, Mark knew that he had lost her, that he had destroyed the most precious thing he had ever known.